We have Dr. Lolita Robinson, who is joining us. She's an entrepreneur in residence with the NIH. She's also the founder and CEO of Fortis Enterprises, which connects healthcare startups with venture capitalists. We have David Reese, Wilmington All-Star, right, that we all know, an OPA founder and CEO, and building that business, and has great experience with getting at least 3 grants to this point, and is also now a finalist for NCID IDEA, which you'll hear next week. So we're really excited and cheering for him, and we'll be lobbying behind the scenes if we can. And then Krista Covey, who heads up the First Flight Center in the Triangle, doing amazing work with the Wheels Up program and a whole series of new initiatives. So I'm going to sit down and just be a panel. We're going to start off with kind of a general question. We'll kind of navigate our way through. I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll open it up to questions for you so you can get the practical take-home value that you need. So the first question I want to ask is, you've obviously all had significant experience in dealing with entrepreneurs in this journey in your particular space. So if you could just take a few minutes and give a little bit about your experience dealing with entrepreneurs, and what would be, let's say 1, 2, or 3 things that you would tell entrepreneurs that you want them to know as they go forward in their journey, as they seek these alternative funds. So Lolita, could I talk to you first?
Absolutely.
So I'll let you start, and then we'll work our way down.
Okay. Yeah, so I will start with, as an entrepreneur myself, in addition to the consulting company now, but several years ago, I worked with the University of Maryland to spin out a medical diagnostics company with a team of scientists. And we went through all sorts of craziness, and definitely going for funding and working with the state of Maryland to secure economic development grants. It was just a journey that was very difficult, as you know. And one thing I would say that I learned in that process was ask questions. If you don't know, find somebody who knows and basically make them your friend. And the other thing I out to as we were going through the SBR process, or STTR at that time, was not to try to work it yourself and basically get to know the insights or who those program managers are internally within the agency itself. Make them your friends, and then they will tell you things that you didn't know. And so that's what, second thing that I learned. The third thing I learned is be a part of the process. So if you're going after an SBR or STTR grant, they're always looking for someone to review those grants. So learn about how they grade, how there was criteria, and how they're scoring, and what they're looking for, and how they're judging. Then you write a better proposal. And so those are the 3 things I would say.
So you mean, don't just take your stock application from somewhere else and put it in, right? Do your research.
And so especially as we're serving what we call high science, high tech, high impact companies, folks that are out to change the world for good, really, solving really significant problems, many of which are in the life sciences. Science is very broad. The SBIRs and STTRs are a critical component, right? Especially for that early stage R&D funding. And so it's great that we have this opportunity. We have all these federal agencies with the budgets to allow us to access those that money. It's highly competitive. So how First Flight serves our innovators and entrepreneurs is that we partner with a grant writing organization, Eva Garland Consulting, and other resources to help innovators get that additional support. If you've ever gone through an SBIR, STTR grant writing process, it is daunting. And if you haven't, there's help out there. So just like my friend said, ask for help. There's tons of resources out there. We are able to help subsidize the cost of that grant writing. So grant writing is not cheap, but we can cut that cost typically in half, which can be very helpful. So we've subsidized about $250,000 in grant writing assistance, and in turn, the companies that we've supported have raised well over $18 million. And so we're looking at probably more than 20 at this point. So we want to continue to do that. Also, talking to your program manager, critical. Making friends with your program manager can be so critical to your success. And then again, they're just reiterating the fact that there are there are 3 phases typically, right? Phase 1, about $250,000. Phase 2, which should be the goal, about $1 million. But ultimately, you're trying to get to commercialization. So don't forget that critical piece, because you're going to have to figure out who your customer is, how you're going to get somebody to give you cold hard cash for your good idea, right? So critical piece there. And also just throw in another one, be patient. These things take time, especially with the different funding cycles for each agency. I would say be patient. This is not overnight capital.
And Chris, just so, since these folks have, not everybody wins, right?
That's
it's
right.
competitive. So
right.
when you face that ultimate, no, I'm sorry, right? What advice do you have to those folks about going back again? And how do you take that rejection, right, which we get used to as entrepreneurs, but what do you do then on that second round that you might learn through that process?
Well, first, don't crawl in a hole. Just get yourself back up, right? This is part of the process. You'll get there. Keep going. We do see that there are certain types of founders that are one and done, and that's disappointing. We want to change that, right? Because they are so competitive. If you don't get it on the first try, don't give up. That's normal. Take that feedback. Again, interact with your program manager, learn from that, and build on a much better proposal for the next time.
All right, now David, you've lived this life, right? So you've been through this. You've been successful on a number of different grants and awards. Can you tell us a little bit about your practical experience with this? And part of this is sometimes when we look at this, the process can seem daunting, and you might think that the dollars are low. And is it really worth it now as you've gone through this journey? So tell us, share that opioid story with us, if you will, and what you've learned through the process.
Sure, thank you. And with regards to the audience members being entrepreneurs, speaking to the entrepreneur with this in mind, is that it can be a daunting process. However, it's a really powerful process of learning, and ultimately success if you remain perseverant. That's the key word, is perseverance, because there's a very high likelihood, just based on math, you're not going to get the first one. So if you can get that first one and not let that deliver a death blow to your why, right? Because your why's got to be pretty big if you're going to go for SBIR dollars. You better be prepared to hear no the first time. But what's really cool is that critical feedback that you got from reviewers who are the experts in your field. You're getting like the greatest insight on where the market is going and what it's going to take to take your product or idea to the next level. So they actually save you time. Reading this criticism, it's like the best medicine you're ever going to take. If you're able to take that criticism, and it's not even criticism, they're critiques. It's a different thing. They're not hitting you as a person. They're looking at the technology and saying, will this solve a problem? Will this meet a need that's currently out there? Do they think it's innovative? Because SBIRs get rated across 5 different categories. So you really get an understanding of where is your unique selling proposition as a business or as an idea. And it's pretty amazing. We didn't get the first SBIR that we applied for. We applied for a SBIR phase 1 and it was scored, which is great, but it ultimately wasn't funded. But thank God it wasn't funded. No, seriously though, had that SBIR been funded the way that we had written it, I'd be out of business already, because we made a strategic pivot as a result of that critique, and now I'm up for a fast track funding this month, in the tune of like 2.8 million. With a phase 2 clinical trial built into it, so we're getting to market, But if we would have got that first phase 1, we would have been done. A year later, after that funding dried up, that would have been it.
Wow.
This company making addiction treatment safer and more effective, and the way that we do that is twofold. One, we make best use of the data that clinicians already have to better understand who's going to relapse inside of their treatment for their opioid or other substance addiction. And the other thing that we've done, which is quite unique, is that we did a phase 1 clinical trial using wearables, where we were able to create an algorithm that uses raw data from a wrist-worn device like this Fitbit that you see, a wrist-worn device. It takes that data and it identifies withdrawal and acute use of opioids remotely, and using that data that can better help clinicians decide how to personalize treatment approaches for our neighbors in recovery. So Opioid is now an FDA process for software as a medical device on that biometric algorithm. And we are patent pending, building our team and raising money. We're really excited, about the place that we're at. And just for a little bit of background, OPAID was created for Wilmington, North Carolina. It was built for our neighbors. We want to see more of our neighbors come home at night. So we put a lot of time, energy, and heart into making sure that we could build something that was robust, that could do just that. And we've gotten tremendous support from the local community and all the organizations within North Carolina, and now federally too. And we're just grateful and humbled for the opportunity to be able to make a meaningful impact in that area.
Good.
Well done. Absolutely. So David, as you look at going through this process, can you talk a little bit about the range of all the alternative funding sources that you've looked at? And then I want to pivot to each of you on, what are the common mistakes that you see? And David, what mistakes did you make in going through this process that you would let people know about and say, don't do what we did?
Yeah, so the mistakes are more important than the things that you win, that's for sure. Truly, because if you just win or somebody funds you and you really weren't on the right track, your life is going to be short as a business. So one of the mistakes we made, Dr. Lolita, you mentioned this before, is if you're going to apply for something, understand the scoring criteria, who they fund, why they fund. I applied for an NC IDEA grant back in 2019 when we were just an idea, but I applied for the seed grant, which was absolutely the wrong mechanism. So just I applied for NC IDEA 4 times. This is my 4th time because I'm maybe a little too perseverant. But once I get my head on something, I have zero quit in my DNA. So I just had to go for it. So knowing the criteria, the type of funding that you're going after, and making sure that it actually meets a specific milestone or something you're trying to achieve. For instance, I've talked to folks that said, why are you going for SBIR? Are you a research organization? It's like, no, SBIR dollars are really good to develop certain components or certain pieces of your product, but other things you just have to build on with your own money and commercialize it. But it's good to have those non-dilutive dollars and to make sure that the bite is worth the chew, i.e. if you're going to get into something and you're going to do it well with this non-dilutive funding, make sure you're willing to put the time, the effort, and the resources to do it well, and that's not distracting from the business. So I'm not sure if I was answering any more questions.
Yeah, no,
that's
good. Yeah.
And kind of like the broad range, if I may, hopefully I'm not eating up too much time, the broad range of the stuff that we've applied for is mostly in-state funding. So we did the SBIR, we did NIH I-Corps and won that grant. We put in a fast track grant, which is under review, but I also did NC IDEA 4 times. We did NC Pioneer and got 2nd place in the region. Star RNA were there also, amazing group over there, participated in NC Pioneer. We also received matching funds from the state of North Carolina Department of Commerce for the SBIR Phase 1 that we won. So we just saw these opportunities that were non-dilutive. We understood what it took to get them, and we went for it.
Okay, great. Krista, what mistakes do you see entrepreneurs making as they go through these processes and look at these different opportunities for funding?
So I do see more opportunities for folks to take more advantage of training, education, free resources that are out there. As an example, we have been awarded the SBA Small Business Administration FAST, which is a Federal and State Technology Award for North Carolina, and we're in our 5th year. And that helps us expand not only the subsidized grant writing across North Carolina, but we also have training and education. And we have a boot camp that will happen most likely in April, typically happens in the spring, each year. And we invite 35 companies to get a 2-day intensive training and work with grant writing experts. And they work on things like their writing styles. And so I see that as a critical component. Sometimes there's a lot of mistakes there because you're writing for folks that may not have expertise in your particular area. And so you have to write in a way that is you can easily communicate the value. You also have to have some proof of concept, some data in there as well. And so taking the time to understand what writing style or how you're communicating the value of your idea is extremely important. And if we can be helpful, we'd love to do that. We have the FAST program is not just in April, it's actually a year-long program. It started in October, so stay tuned. We work in collaboration with other entrepreneur support organizations across North Carolina to deliver this programming, so take advantage of that. I'd say it's most of it is free or greatly reduced, and it would be a mistake not to take advantage of it.
Do you know any companies that might have gone through that program?
I don't know.
Yeah, First Light has been amazing to OPA. Let me just be super clear, literally just amazing. I won't go into all the details, but we have such an amazing ecosystem in North Carolina that's willing to get behind you if you just do the work. You literally
Krista,
you just have to show up.
Yeah, Krista, I have entrepreneurs who tell me that all sounds terrific, but I'm trying to do a startup, or I'm trying to balance this, do a startup and still work and make an income. I don't have time to do all of this, that you're talking about. And why is it worth it, right? Let's say I can get 50,000. Why is that worth it to that entrepreneur to make the argument to say it is worth your time?
Absolutely. Well, I think David made a good case, right? The feedback that he actually got from his first submission was critical for their initial pivot. So I would absolutely say it is worth it. Going through, and it typically takes about 20 to 25 hours, I would say, maybe even more on your first go around, up to a full week, so 40-hour week, which is a big deal for a startup company. However, in the long run, you're getting on a good path. If you can secure non-dilutive funding, which is what this is, it's going to set you up for other investment opportunities, right? Because the investor is going to say, well, gosh, you've already got some validation here. You've got, the government's already kind of put money behind you. So that could be very meaningful, right? And so what we've seen is that it has been critical, and it has been very meaningful, and it fills in a huge gap, especially on the life sciences, right? For angels are wonderful, critical, and necessary, but there's not many angels that play in this space, and so it's very difficult, especially on the early stage, to get that seed capital. And so this is worth it, because sometimes if you're down that path, it can accelerate your journey.
So it is validating, and there's also the publicity part of it, right?
Definitely.
Where you're becoming known by others as well. So, Dr. Robinson, you're in the in the NIH, which is the place where many entrepreneurs go to die. So as it is a daunting place,
It sure
right?
is.
And the question always that I get from entrepreneurs is, where do I start? How do I navigate this big giant thing and this bureaucracy? So I know you have the secrets to the keys of life. What's the answer for them?
So I will say I've been an entrepreneur in residence at the NIH for about a year and a half, 2 years, almost pushing 2 years. And I will say once I went into it, I was like, wow, I didn't know this myself, and I wish I'd known some of this information. And it's very daunting, and you'll never be able to find the right places. But I'm going to tell you a couple of tricks, but a couple of things. So the first thing is the seed office. So the seed office is the Small Business Education Entrepreneur Development. It's been around for about 2 years. What it is basically kind of your first entry into navigating the NIH. What it does is, number one, there's a bunch of us, like in EHRs, and I think there's about 8 of us. We have varied experiences, VC, we've got built CEOs, we've built companies, executive leadership. And what we do is we work with the NIH innovators, so those who've been awarded in STTR, SBIR, we provide services to them. So basically, if they have a pitch at Bio, we work with them on the pitch. We pay for them to go to Bio. We also work with innovators around reimbursement, regulatory, IP strategy. So we work with them to help develop their plans around that. We have FDA experts within that seed office as well. So once you have a conversation, you need to meet with the FDA, we can provide you with that consult. We also provide them on how to figure out how to work with VCs, how to approach them, how to build your advisory board. So there's a lot of things that we do inside. We also have access to all the program officers within the NIH. So we have a lot of folks that come to us and say, well, I don't know where to go. Is it NCI? Is it this? and we direct them to where they need to go. They work with that program officer who can say, well, we might not be the best fit for you, but go over here and here are some particular grants to go after. And they work with you. We provide sample applications. We have other services called TABA, which is the Technical Business Assistance. And what it is we give you $50,000 and we match you up with a vendor to be able to work on a strategy for marketing, market access, reports, surveys, focus testing with payers. So we do a lot of different things that no one knows about.
Wow.
Even those who've gotten the awards are like coming to us, we never knew we could actually do any of this stuff. But all that is available. You just start at the seed office, go to that website, that's where you get the information.
Are you available as a resource for people to call for any advice if they're going through that process?
Yeah, basically what I would do with, my contacts and entrepreneurs that I work with is I basically give them resource sheets and I tell them exactly who to go to. And also just sort of, sometimes I would direct them to where to go on Seed because, it's a government website. So.
Oh, you mean it works really well?
Exactly. Yeah. So I will help them go through and navigate that website and go where to go. So I definitely do that.
Okay. And what's the profile of, if you look at the companies that are successful or best to go through an NIH process, is there any profile in terms of where they are in their development or anything about the company? What would that look like?
I will say we have conversations and meets and consultations with a lot of NIH innovators. I mean, I've had so many conversations, and the one thing I would say about a good 95% of them are still at that stage where there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of NIH, they're life science, very scientific, very bench scientists. That's all they know. They know they can tell us everything about a mouse. But the thing is, they don't know the business side of things. And so what we try to do is encourage them to sort of expand their advisory board or their team to include business. So when we're working with them, it's all about the research, but tell us how you're going to get this thing to market. And everybody's like, I don't know about that. And we don't have time to work with somebody. So we're like, okay, we'll help you figure out who to match you up with that can help you do this. And so a lot of them are just not quite there where they need to be. And that's why I say you find people who know and help you expand your business, help you understand the business and how to get your product to market.
Okay. Well, as Dr. Robinson mentioned, there are a whole list of different alternatives and things that are available to us that at least I didn't know about, which is amazing. David, from your experience, what are those other hidden pockets of alternative funding that most people don't know about or don't think about? Are there any that you've encountered through your journey?
Sure. So I planted a money tree in my backyard.
Good plan. Has it bloomed?
Yeah. I mean,
and what's your address?
It's unbelievable. I'm heading there right after this if you just want to follow me. The $100 bills are at the very top, go figure, so you have to pluck those off yourself. No, so there are a lot of opportunities out there for non-dilutive funding, but I also want to be clear too that dilutive funding is amazing. There's definitely an opportunity to be raising dilutive funding and getting those strategic people that you need to be working with who have landscape understanding of what's going on, because people vote with their time and they vote with their wallet. And at Opiate we're really committed to partnering with the right groups strategically. Because it's not about the money, it's about what's going to happen once the money hits the bank, and we have folks who, came in early when Opiate was a risky bet, and I really believe in taking care of your investors and taking care of the early people who stuck their neck out there, because at some point you got to decide, is this going to be my full-time hustle, am I going to step out in there and risk the ocean? And people who jump into the ocean with you, you better take care of them, so I believe in getting non-dilutive capital, because it's less risky in certain circumstances. It is edifying to the technology and what you're doing, but also it's respecting your investors who are coming in early and also taking risks. Your early team members who are coming in and taking risks. So it's up to you as the founder, to look at all the opportunities and wait, what is the risk versus benefit of this, and does it play into the overall strategy? I have found other opportunities to better kind of map out that landscape. Krista, who First Flight and Krista, I mean, they've been amazing to us. We worked with Evil Garland Consulting, the grant writing firm, and they did something which was called a non-dilutive landscape analysis. Highly recommend you doing this, by the way. If you're a startup walking into the SBIR realm, he paid, $2,000-3,000, I think it is, maybe two. They do a landscape analysis and say, these are all the grant opportunities that are out there, all the solicitations, that kind of meet the criteria of where you're going, and it gives you a really clear understanding of what's out there. I didn't even know about NIH I-Corps. I had absolutely no idea. But on this list of the top 10 things that we should be looking at, I-Corps was at the top. So I'm like, well, I guess we should look at it, And it was one of the best things we could have possibly done. You get your butt kicked for 10 weeks, just to be clear, but completely worth it. So yeah, work with Eva Garland Consulting or a similar group. Have them do a non-dilutive landscape analysis for your business. Figure out which of those 10 things kind of work into the overall plan of what you're trying to do to achieve your goals. And at the end of the day, it's an idea is an idea until it becomes a plan. A plan's a plan until you execute it. You got to put one foot in front of the other and get the work done.
Right.
That's it.
Wow, great advice.
We have some great resources in North Carolina, including NC Biotechnology Center. So they've got fantastic loans, grants, so there's funding opportunities there. I would say, look, if you're affiliated or connected with a university, sometimes there are, pitch competitions, things like that. Do that. That's great practice anyways, as you're raising money if you go that route. And of course, friends, family, and others.
Okay, others, right. Are you looking at me? Okay.